Today we have with us Sam, myself, James, the founder of Trans Matters Now. I'm not sure if Megan and John are here today, but we also have Lisa and Sharnice from the TMN team. Glad to have everyone here today. So finding the job, the first part of finding a job is actually searching for the jobs. So a lot of job searching now is simply online. A lot of them are job boards such as Indeed.com, LinkedIn.com, as well as others like Diversity Jobs, Monster Jobs, Career Builders, ZipRecruiter, and you may be very familiar with others. So, in finding the job, it's really difficult sometimes to find as a trans person jobs that are affirming with companies that do focus on diversity and inclusion. So some keywords that you can use in order to search out employers who have the diversity and inclusion initiatives and policies are gender identity. And you want to put these words into quotation marks so that it can rule out any others that has the word like gender or identity. You want specifically gender identity, LGBT or LGBTQ, transgender, queer, diversity, inclusion, gender presentation. And a lot of these words can be found in the like commitment statement. And in that, you will be able to find a way to search out those in particular and then see them in that statement, equal opportunity. So getting the best results. When we want to specify our result queries, we can sometimes narrow down those search results by doing things such as changing how many days it has been since the company put in the job. So for instance, if you see there that it says last 30 days, well, some of those may already been to the point of interviews or selecting the candidates. So you want to narrow down how many days it's been. I like to do in the last week or the last 3 days. Those typically are still taking applicants. Also, you want to take into consideration when you are having transportation needs. For instance, if you have your own vehicle or if you need to have that public transportation, you may narrow down that search between anywhere from 50 miles to 5 miles to the exact location itself so that you can take into consideration how many miles you're having to travel to get to that job. Another way to narrow down your search criteria is what type of job you would like, whether that's part-time, full-time, or what have you. Contract, freelance, all of that can be narrowed down right here. Now, when you're looking for entry level or seniority type jobs, depending upon your background and work history and education, you can also select the experience level when searching for a job. A lot of the platforms that we see today, some of the databases allow you to create a personal profile. Now, these platforms will help you and do the work for you. You can create a resume right on the platform or upload one of your existing resumes, and employers can be matched to you based on search criteria. It will also, some of them like LinkedIn and Indeed, will prompt you to apply for jobs. For instance, when you utilize some of the built-in features, it will match you to jobs that are based on your qualifications, and it'll show you whether or not you have matching qualifications, skills, or application status updates, as well as skill assessments that you can do right on their website. Next up is Sam with vetting the job.
Right. So once you find some job options that you're interested in, there's a few methods that I use to figure out how safe and accepting a company might be for a trans employee. As many of us know, unfortunately, a non-discrimination statement on a job description does not always equate to an affirming work environment. So the first thing I look at is if the employer or company has an easily accessible diversity, equity, and inclusion statement, either on the job posting or on their website. I usually just Google company name, diversity, and inclusion to find it. I've included examples from the company Indeed so you can see what these kinds of statements look like. The second metric I use is to search the company on the Human Rights Campaign's employer search website. The search engine uses data from their equity indexes that rank companies based on their LGBT inclusive policies, practices, and benefits. This is a great resource if you're looking for jobs at larger companies. The search engine just does not have much data on smaller companies, unfortunately. And finally, I like to look companies up on a website called Glassdoor. Glassdoor is a website that allows employees to anonymously review their experience working at a company. Here you can get some inside knowledge on your risk of discrimination, company culture, benefits, et cetera, working at a certain workplace. This site is extremely helpful if you want to see how the company's management or HR department deals with conflict and how you might be treated if you had to report a coworker for some type of harassment.
Thank you, Sam. So now we're going to go over identities in the workplace. As a trans person, we have to take a lot into consideration about our identity and about the workplace. And some of that is changing. We see society and the workplace itself increasing in awareness and acceptance, which is wonderful, but we're not where we need to be. The EEOC is now tracking workplace complaints from trans employees. Some of the obstacles we face, though, even though there is awareness and acceptance that is increasing, trans workers that are on the path to getting a job have a hard time keeping it and achieving the same type of career success as cisgender counterparts. And that remains fraught with obstacles within the workplace setting. But we are on the right track. As of June 15th of 2020, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression are included in the definition of sex. Therefore, employers may not discriminate against trans individuals in employment. So we cannot be terminated or rejected from employment based on those factors. So the Title VII protects individuals against employment discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, and religion. And it applies to employers with 15 or more employees. If they have 14, it's not relevant. So be sure to look for businesses and organizations that have more than 15 employees that are paid. So many cities and states across the U.S. have passed laws that prohibit employment discrimination based on gender identity and expression. A growing number of companies are also putting in policies that have anti-discrimination and anti-harassment subject titles. So in those areas, they would be in place for gender identity, gender expression, sex, transgender status, etc. So you also want to check the company dress code policy. Sometimes that's something we may not think about, but are they really accepting of a fluid or diverse or unique gender expression? So do they require quote unquote men to wear trousers? Do they require quote unquote women to wear dresses or skirts? You want to look for these types of things when you're assessing the diversity and inclusion of a company. So does the company have affinity groups? Do they reach out and do local outreach? Are they having internal programming related to training for LGBTQ inclusivity and sensitivity trainings? Has there been other transgender employees there? How was the experience for that trans person? Did they transition while on the job? And what did the company do to support this employee? These are things you can ask to the HR as well as during your interview. So, finding an inclusive atmosphere can sometimes be challenging, but we want to find a company that's working hard for people who work hard for them. So, people who work hard and contribute to a company's success should never have to feel stigmatized or fearful of coming to work. Their pronouns and name requirements should be basic respect for a transgender person's identity and expression that is expected in the workplace. So, according to SHRM, diversity in a workplace means employees are able to work with all people. Employees are entitled to their beliefs, but they should also be required to treat the trans person and every other employee with respect. Consider the Workplace Color Diversity Code. And whether you've heard of this or not, we will go over a few of those colors in the next couple slides. When applying to positions with corporations, they often will have a color diversity code that scales the company based on their inclusivity and diversity structures. Green businesses and teal businesses are the ones that you want to look for. Green businesses are value driven. Their culture provides employee empowerment and advancement. Their organization is viewed as a family structure. They have social concerns at their core, and they're looking beyond the profits at how they can benefit the world around them, whether that's locally, nationally, or globally. Some of these examples include Ben and Jerry's and Southwest Airlines. They run their businesses in the green business hierarchy. Teal businesses are driven by its evolutionary purpose. What has it been evolved to do? They are self organized and they embrace wholeness in their structures and culture. They're an organizations that have living systems that evolve over time. Examples include Patagonia, Burt Sword, and AES. Colors to avoid. These hierarchies in these business structures are ones that are toxic: red businesses and orange businesses. Red businesses are like street gangs, mafia type, a lot of family owned businesses practice in these manners as well. Wolf pack formation with like an alpha or like ringleader leading the group. They may be impulsive. They may thrive on chaos. They may not have a clear structure and long term goals for their company. They may control strictly through fear, and inherent fragilities are exposed in these types of hierarchies. Short term focuses, poor planning, and no long term goals. Orange businesses are companies that are very machine like inner workings. They're driven by money, profit, and the recognition they can get for their company. They're driven by innovation, accountability, and meritocracy, and one would think that would be a good thing. However, they're marred by corruption and inequality and toxic, environmentally unstable practices. Some examples would include global corporations such as the Arcadia Group. When we're transitioning at work, whether we're doing so in a stealthy manner or whether we're doing so as an open trans person, the circumstances that you may have to consider have a big bearing on how the transition should be handled, including the nature of the enterprise and the degree to which it's public or private, the organizational culture, the composition of the workforce, the type of work being done, and the physical layout of the workplace, as well as the amount of interaction that you may have with peers, superiors, subordinates, vendors, clients, and customers. So if you plan to change your gender expression as a part of your transition, you can discuss a timeline for when you plan to make this change with your HR and direct supervisor. If you plan to medically transition, it is important to discuss time off for your medical visits, as well as consider your insurance that you have. If you can consult your insurance company for information on transition related care, that can be beneficial as well, especially when initially searching for jobs. You want to make sure, if you don't already have insurance provided, that you can get transgender related healthcare coverage. Even if you do not plan to medically transition, a lot of our primary care for trans people alters once we come out as trans. So you may want time off just to adjust to your new gender expression too. So talking with your supervisors in the interviews or HR once you're hired can really help those things. Okay, so next up is the resume and cover letter section. So when you're building out your resume, you want to quantify everything. And so don't just list out what your duties were or your responsibilities were. You really want to quantify your achievements. For instance, if you led a team of 4 people and got 5,000 impressions from your Facebook posts, name that out. Stats, dates, amounts, totals, these really help to put a value to your work. With an exception, you don't want to qualify the skills. For instance, you don't want to give yourself ratings because you want to value your work, not you as a person. So keep it simple. When you're lining out your resume, you want to do 1 to 2 pages, especially for those that are newer professionals that are entry level or just have a few years. You want to keep it as limited as possible. Having large blocks of text or multiple columns really is hard to read for some individuals. So you want to keep the readability easy and emphasize things with bold or italics and keep it black and white. A lot of colors, a lot of pop isn't as seen as professional as simple black and white. Also, keep it relevant to the job that you're applying for. If you have tech experience and customer service experience and sales experience, well, have 3 different resumes. Have one for the tech, one for the customer service, and one for the sales. And use keywords that match those job descriptions that you're searching. Not cliche words like I'm a team player, I'm a great communicator, I'm a hard worker. Everybody is when they're looking for a job. Everybody's going to be using those words. So you want to rule out those type of words and fit it more towards the criteria that they're searching for the job description itself. Leaving out non-directly related jobs really helps to hone in on the relevant experience that you have for that particular position. So avoiding the non-relevant experience can help you when the interviewer or hiring manager is looking at your resume. They'll understand what is exactly pertinent. Now, once you're in the interview, you can definitely relate other jobs that you have done and include that information to say, yes, I do have experience in these other areas. Now, here is an example resume. It's laid out in black and white. There are bold and larger print sections that stand out and divide in clear sections, such as work experience and education, and then key achievements under those. All right, next up, Sam is going to do getting interview ready. Thank you, Sam.
So when you're beginning the process of researching your company, a lot of the times you want to start with their website. A lot of the times the company's About Us section will tell you how they see themselves and what their core values are. You want a company that's a good fit for you. It's helpful to look at your company's mission, major clients, and values. In addition, you can look at any news articles related to your company and industry. Did the company recently have an acquisition or merger? Are they facing any challenges? You can look up your interviewers on LinkedIn and see what industries they come from, how long they've been working with the company, and what their career has looked like. You may be able to find some common ground with them, and you might be able to see what kind of growth employees have had at that company. You don't need to spend a lot of time on this. Even 20 minutes of research will help you look really prepared in your interview and can help you sell your skills to the interviewer. So when you're preparing for the interview itself, a good first step is to look at the job description and think about how your experience fits with each piece of the role. Don't panic if your skills are not exactly a match or if there are job duties that you do not know how to do. Sometimes if the job asks for experience using a certain software that you might not have used, for example, it could be useful to talk about a similar software that you have used. If the job asks for management experience that you don't have, you might be able to say at your last job, you trained and mentored new employees. It's good to think about uh, common interview questions such as what are your strengths? Um, think of a time you had a difficult client, or why are you looking for a new job? You want to keep it very positive and have thoughtful answers. You can consider a mock interview with a friend you trust. They can give you feedback on your answers, your tone, and your body language. It's good to prepare questions for your interview. You can ask about the culture or what traits have set apart um, excellent performers in your role in the past. If possible, you want to print out extra copies of your resume. I've had interviewers ask me for a copy or ask me to go through it with them, so this is very useful to have. An important piece of preparing for your interview is figuring out the logistics in advance. You want to be calm and collected on the day of the interview, and you don't want to be frazzled over your outfit or parking or your internet connection. So it can be helpful to think about these things in advance. The first piece is trying on your interview outfit, whether it's a suit, slacks, or a dress and a nice shirt, depending on what is appropriate for your company and personal comfort level. I myself recently changed jobs and found that my suit that I had worn for interviews pre-pandemic no longer fit me. So I was really grateful that I have given myself time to make adjustments. If you do not have an interview outfit and you cannot afford one, it may be useful to try thrift shops or borrow something from a friend. If you're able to find an inexpensive outfit, you can have it tailored to fit your body exactly how you want it to. And that can be much more cost effective than buying a custom suit. If you have long hair, you will most likely want it out of your face, and you want to avoid wearing accessories that you will have to adjust just to avoid being distracted. Uh, Make sure you look up the location of the company and figure out how you're going to get there, whether you need a ride or an Uber, and make sure you have gas if you're driving. Um, if you're taking public transit, find out where the closest stop is and how far it is from your location. It's also useful to decide if this job is commutable for you, and if so, how much time and money it would take for you to get there. For remote interviews, um, make sure that you have a clean, quiet space set up with no distractions, and test your connection in advance. Make sure that you have the details of your interview handy and the contact info for who you need to ask for. This is all to get you ready for the interview and keep you on time so that you're not feeling frazzled or overwhelmed. After your interview, remember to get the business cards um, of your interviewers and to send follow-up thank you emails.
All right. If you would like to learn more about these topics, you can do so at the following places: shrm.org, the hrcfoundation.org, and hrzone.com. Thank you so much for your time and attendance. We hope that you learned a lot from this presentation. And if you have search needs, we are available at transmattersnow.com. You can go to our menu and click on Trans Job Connect, and you will find our client intake form there. Thank you so much, and we hope that you have all the luck in your job search. Do you have any questions?